afternoon, everyone. Miranda, would I might but ever see that man. So on listening to Prospero, when Prospero was praising Gonzalo, and when Miranda came to know that it is because of Gonzalo that they are alive. It is because of the help provided by Gonzalo that both of them are alive. So Miranda says that would I might but ever see that man. How I wish that I am able to see that man. Who is that man here? Gonzalo. That once I am able to see that man who has been so generous to us, that man who has shown so much kindness to us. Prospero. Now I arise. Now I rise means now I'll get up. Means I've told you a lot and now I need to get up. Resumes his mantle. Resumes his mantle means he takes hold of that cloak which he was wearing, that robe which he was wearing. You remember earlier he removed his robe when he was talking to Miranda, and now he just resumes it, means he again wears that robe, that cloak, that magical garment which he used to wear. Sit still and hear the last of our sea sorrow. So Prospero says, you are not supposed to move, you sit still without any movement and listen to the end of our sea sorrow. Sea sorrow means the sufferings of the suffering which we face, the pain and the suffering which we faced in the sea. Here in this island we arrived, and here have I thy schoolmaster made thee more profit than other princesses can. So Prospero says that the end, now to conclude the story which I was telling you, I would say that this is how we finally landed upon this island, right? Where we are at the present moment. And here, and then I have always been your school teacher on this island. I have taught you everything from the time you were a little child. So I have acted as your school teacher and I have taught you, made thee more profit. And you have benefited more from me than any other princess could have done. Why? Because any other princess can, that have more time for vainer hours. Vainer hour means idle occupations. Idle occupations means for useless occupation. Why? Because in the palaces, what happens? What happens in the palace? They have a lot of things to do. These prince and princesses, they have a lot of things to do. So they occupy themselves with useless things, whiling away their time, wasting their time. So that is what Prospero is saying, that because it was an island and there was no one else besides Prospero and Miranda, so you have benefited more than in comparison to any other princess, right? Because there were no vainer occupations here. There was nothing to keep you involved. So you paid more attention to your learning, to your studies, and because you paid more attention to your learning and studies, so you have benefited more than other princes could have. And tutors not so careful. And because I was your father and your tutor both, so obviously I'll teach you with more sincerity. The other tutors who are not so competent, right? There are other teachers in the palaces which are not so, the tutors in the palaces are not so competent. I took the responsibility of teaching you, of educating you. So that is also one of the reasons that you have benefited more. Means there are two reasons why you had an advantage over the other children of the nobility, because the first one was that you didn't have anything else to keep yourself occupied, and the second reason was that you were the tutors in the palace are not so competent or are not so knowledgeable as compared to me. I have taught you in a better way in comparison to the other tutors which are there in the palace. Miranda, heavens, thank you for it. And now I pray, sir. So Miranda says, yes, and may heaven bless you for that. I know I am very grateful. I have a lot of gratitude for you. I am indebted to you for all the knowledge and for all the things which you have given me, and may heaven bless you for that. Right? Bless you. May heavens bless you for educating me, for giving me this wonderful gift of knowledge. And now I pray you, sir. And then Miranda wanted to ask something. So Miranda says that now I request you, sir, for still it is beating in my mind. Why I want to ask you something? There is something in my mind and it is still beating in my mind means that it is still troubling my mind. This thought is troubling me. There is something which is coming in my head and that is making me restless. Now, what was her question? Your reason for raising this storm. So, what was the thing which was troubling Miranda continuously? Was that she wanted to know the reason for creating this storm. It's very good. She heard the sad story which Prospero narrated to her, right? She came to know about her past. She came to know of the fact that she is not any normal island girl. She is a princess, right? Her father is not a humble cave owner. He is the duke in reality. Then her uncle was a wicked person. She was saved by the greatness of Gonzalo, right? So she came to know all these things. But still, the thing which is troubling her was that why did Prospero raise this storm? What is the relation? So she finally asked Prospero, know this powerful. So by accident most strange, bountiful fortune. Now my dear lady, at my enemies brought to the shore. So Prospero says that as of now, you are supposed to know only this much, that by accident means by chance what happened, most strange means it's really something very strange which happened, right? It is you can call it a mysterious accident which happened, that bountiful fortune. Bountiful fortune means the fortune which always blesses everyone, the fortune which always gives everyone. Fortune is personified here, right? The goddess of fortune. The meaning is the goddess of fortune, right? Which is always giving. Now, my dear lady, hath my enemies brought to the shore. So, let me tell you, my dear lady, what has fortune done? Fortune has by accident, by chance, by some mysterious, by some strange chance, what has happened? My enemies, all the people who wronged me 12 years ago, all the people who were responsible for my misfortune 12 years ago, what has fortune done? Fortune has brought them to this shore. And by my prescience, I find my zenith that depend upon a most auspicious star, whose influence, if now I quote not but omit, my fortunes will ever after true. And Prospero says that, and by my prescience means by my knowledge, about the future, by my calculation, right? Because Prospero was educated, he was a magician, so he had the ability to know about the future also. So that is what he's saying. By my calculations, by whatever I can predict about the future, by all the knowledge which I have about my future, I can say I find my zenith. Zenith means the highest point, the summit, that is the zenith. So I find my zenith that depend upon the most auspicious star. That my zenith of prosperity my zenith of good luck depends upon the most auspicious star. There is a most auspicious star in the sky which is telling me that it's time that if I act properly, that if I take a proper note of the circumstances, then this is the time when my fortunes can reach the highest level of prosperity. Whose influence, if now I quote not, but omit. And if I deny the influence of that star, if I ignore the influence of that star, that is, I don't act in the right manner, and I ignore it, I neglect it, I omit it, my fortunes will ever after do. Then what will be the consequence of it? That my fortune will come down and they will go on falling for the rest of my life. So the destiny wants me to act at this particular moment, because depends whether because my luck now depends upon me, because the stars are favorable, there is an auspicious star, and it is up to me either to take a note of it, to pay attention to it, or to ignore it. If I'll ignore it, then my fortune will fall. Droop means fall, come down. And if I pay heed to it and act accordingly, then my prosperity and my fortunes will reach their highest point. That is, will reach their zenith. Will reach its zenith. Here, sees more questions. So now Prospero says, now stop, now nothing more. Maybe some other question would arise in Miranda's head. She's just a 15-year-old girl, so like always full of so many questions. So he says that now cease, stop asking. Cease means to stop. Stop asking more questions. You're not supposed to ask any more questions. Thou art inclined to sleep. It's a good dullness. Dullness means sleepiness, right? So it's a good dullness. Give it way. Give it way means surrender to it. Submit to it. I know thou canst but choose. And I know you don't have a choice. So Prospero uses his magic to make Miranda fall asleep. Okay. Prospero says, now don't ask any question. You are about to sleep. You are feeling sleepy. This is a very nice sleepiness which is engulfing you. Give it way. Submit before it. Surrender to the sleepiness. I know thou canst but choose. So I know you can do nothing except to choose this. Why? Because this is Prospero's magic, and Miranda doesn't have the power to go to fight it and go against it. So Miranda is left with no option than to fall asleep. So Miranda falls asleep. And she is made to fall asleep by Prospero. Then Miranda sleeps. Come away, servant, come. I'm ready now. Approach my Ariel. Come. So that is why Miranda was made to fall asleep, because Prospero wanted to talk to Ariel. And who is Ariel? Ariel is a spirit, right? So Prospero didn't want to talk in front of Miranda, didn't want to talk to Ariel in front of Miranda. That is why he made her fall asleep. Enter Ariel. So then Ariel enters. All hail, great master, grave sir, hail. I come to answer thy best pleasure. So all hail means my greetings to you, my master. Grave sir means my respected master, my great master. I offer you my greetings, right? He wishes Prospero, and then he says, I come to answer thy best pleasure. I come to answer thy best pleasure means I am here to perform whatever I can do to the best of my abilities, right? I am here to make you happy. I am here to make you, I am here to please you to the best of my abilities. Means I will follow your instructions, whatever you want me to do, so that you are happy and you are pleased. Be it to fly, to swim, to dive into the fire. Whatever it is, whatever you will instruct me, I will follow. Whether it is to fly, if you will instruct me to fly, I will fly for you. If you will instruct me to swim, I will swim for you. If you will instruct me to jump into the fire, I will do that also. To ride on the curled clouds. And if I'll be instructed to ride on the curled clouds. The curled clouds means the clouds are not straight, right? So they are curly. So if you will instruct me to ride on the curled clouds, then I'll do that also. To thy strong bidding task, Ariel and all his quality. So I am here at your service to thy strong. A strong bidding task means your most difficult task which you'll assign me. Right? I am ready to obey the most difficult task which will be assigned by you. I am here at your service and all his quality means I am here to obey your instructions with all my quality means with all my skills. So I, along with my skills, am here at your service to obey whatever you want me to do. Clear? Prospero. Hast thou spirit performed to point the tempest that I bade thee? So Prospero says, have you spirit performed to point? Perform to point means perform to the minutest details. Means exactly the way I asked you to perform. The tempest I bade thee means I instructed thee. Means have you obeyed my instructions about the tempest which I gave you? Right? We have been told that Prospero was responsible for this tempest. Prospero was responsible for this storm. So that is what Prospero, and then Prospero was able to do this, was able to carry out all these things because of Ariel and because of his magic, right? So he wants to know whether Ariel has done its job properly or not. So that is why he says that have you spirit performed to point means performed exactly to the smallest detail the instructions which I have given you, the instructions which were given to you by me about the tempest. To every article. So Ariel says yes, to every article means even the slightest detail was not omitted. Means your instructions were followed to every single word. Then Ariel tells Prospero what all it did. Now this speech is again very important. What all Ariel did in the ship. I boarded the king's ship. Now on the beak, now in the waist, the deck, and in every cabin. So I boarded the king's ship. Means first I went inside the king's ship and then at the beak. Beak is the bow. One portion of the ship. That is the bow. Is the beak. Waist means the middle portion of the ship. And then the deck of the ship. And then in the cabin. So I was all over the place. Means all over the ship. I was moving from one place to another. Sometimes I was there on the deck, sometimes in the cabin, sometimes on the bow, sometimes the waist in the middle of the ship. So I was doing that. And I flamed amazement. Flamed amazement means I transformed myself into flashes of light, right, which were burning. So I started, I disguised myself as flames and I was burning in all these parts of the ship. So, flamed amazement means I was I transformed myself into flashes of light and was burning at all these places, was burning at several places. Amazement means which caused some kind of amazement to the people who were on board the ship. These people who were inside that ship, they were wonder-struck when they saw me. They must have not seen Ariel actually. They must have seen that flash, right? That fire burning at several parts of the ship, right? So what will happen? You will be wonder-struck when there is nothing and all of a sudden a fire burns here and then you see some other flame at some other corner of the ship, then in the middle of the ship, then in the deck of the ship, then in the cabins also. All of a sudden, if a fire starts burning, what will happen? You will be wonderstruck. You will be amazed. So that is the meaning of flamed amazement. Sometimes I would divide and burn in many pieces. So this is what Ariel did. Sometimes it divided itself into several flames and simultaneously it burned at several places. On the topmast, the yards, the bowsprit. So these are the parts of the ship. So I divided myself and I started burning at different places in the ship. Would I flame distinctly? So distinctly means separately. So separately in flames, I was burning in different portions of the ship. Then meet and join. And then all of a sudden, what did I do? I joined. Means then all these flames, they came together and started burning as single flame, as one flame. Jove's lightning, the precursors of the dreadful thunderclaps. More momentary and sight outrunning, one not. So this is what Ariel says. Who is Jove? Jove is another name of Jove is Jupiter. Right? So who's Jupiter? Jupiter is the king of gods and also known as the god of sky and the god of thunder. So besides being the king of gods, Jove is also the god of sky and god of thunder. Right? And what is the weapon of Jove? Jove's weapon is thunderbolt. Right? So now Ariel says that even Jove's lightning means Jove's thunderbolt, right? The precursors of the dreadful thunderclap. Precursor means forerunner, right? So even Jove's lightning, which is seen before he hurls his thunderbolt. So what happens? First whenever there is a thunderbolt, first you see a lightning, right? And then after that you hear that thunderbolt, right? So that is what precursor means, something which comes before, something which harbinger, right? Something which comes before and it tells about the thing which is following, right? That is a precursor. So that is what Ariel says, that even Jove's lightning, which acts as a precursor of the thunderbolt, the dreadful thunderbolt. I told you, thunderbolt is what? Thunderbolt is the weapon which is used by Jove, the god of thunder. So it will also not be so quick and so swift as I was in my movement. Means I was faster than the thunderbolt of Jove. So I moved faster than Jove's lightning. Then the fire and the cracks of sulphurous roaring, the most mighty Neptune, seems to besiege and make his bold waves tremble. Yeah, his dread trident shake. Neptune. Who is Neptune? Neptune is the god of sea. The god of sea, the god of water is Neptune. Trident is the weapon of the god of sea. It's a three-pronged weapon, right? Very similar to the trishul, right? It has three prongs or three fork kind of a thing, right? Those pointed edges are there, and so that is used by Neptune, the god of sea. So now Ariel says that the flashes of lightning and the roars of thunder which I produced, what did it do? It took control over the most powerful god of sea, that I was able to have entire control over the sea. And then what did I do? I made this sea god, right? Even the sea god was trembling in fear. The sulphurous roaring, the most mighty Neptune. The sulphurous roaring means the roaring waves of the sea, right? To overwhelm them, to have entire control over them, seem to besiege and make his bold waves tremble. So even the bold waves, the powerful waves of the sea, they started trembling, right? They were also scared. They were also frightened and they were trembling. Yeah, his dread trident shake. And even his weapon, that is the trident which this god of Neptune carries, that also started shaking. It was so frightening. My brave spirit, who was so firm, so constant, that this coil would not infect his reason. So now Prospero wanted to know who was the person inside the ship, right? Of all these people who were, of all these people who were on board the ship, of all these passengers which were inside that ship, who was the one who was my brave spirit? My brave spirit is like now Prospero is praising praising Ariel, that you have done your job really well. You are my marvelous spirit. You are my wonderful spirit. Who was so firm? Who was so strong? Was there anyone in the ship who was strong enough? So constant. So constant means again who was very calm. Firm means strong. Who was the one in the ship who was very strong, who was very composed, and that this coil means confusion and chaos, that this confusion would not infect his reason? Who was the one inside the ship whose reason, whose senses were not infected by all this confusion and chaos which was going on inside the ship? Prospero wants to know that was there anyone in the ship who remained calm, composed, and in his proper senses, who didn't go mad on seeing all these things happening in the ship? Was there anyone? This is what Prospero is asking Ariel. Not a soul, but felt a fever of man. So there was not even a single person, there was not even a single soul in the ship that didn't go mad, that was not crazy on seeing all these things. Means everyone was mad with pride. Everyone was so terrified in that ship. Every single soul, every single passenger of that ship, every single human being on board that ship had gone crazy because of the terror which I caused inside that ship, and played some trick in desperation. And all of them, they started doing some desperate pranks. What happens when your mind is not in its proper place, it's not functioning properly, when you are crazy, you do strange things. So all these people, they lost their senses inside the ship, and then they did, in their desperation, they did some stupid prank, they did some stupid deed. But all but mariners plunged in the foaming brine. Brine is the salt water. Now here the meaning of brine is the sea water. Means all the people, all but mariners. All but mariners means except the sailors in the ship. The rest of the passengers, what did they do? They just plunged into the foaming brine. Foaming brine means the sea whose waves were rising very high, right? The sea which was full of foaming waves, right? So all of them, they jumped into the sea in foaming brine and quit the vessel. Quit the vessel means they left the ship and jumped, plunged into the foaming brine, that is, jumped into the foaming sea, into the sea whose waves were rising very high, and they left the vessel. Then all afire with me. So there were flames produced by all over the place. There were only flames produced by me. The king's son Ferdinand, with hair up staring, then like reeds not here. So was the first man that lead. So then Ariel says, and who was the one to lead this act of jumping into the sea? Ferdinand, the king's son. Right? King's son Ferdinand was the first one to jump into the sea. He was the one who started this thing. That is, he was the first one, and he was so scared, with hair up staring, means he was so scared, he was so frightened that all his hair were standing on their ends, means they were all straight standing like the reeds, you know, those wild grass kind of a thing. So they are straight, right? So that is what Ariel says, that Ferdinand, whose hairs were standing like reeds because of fear, because he was so frightened, so scared. So he was the first one to leap into the sea. He was the first one who jumped into the sea, and then the others on board that ship, they followed. Then after him, all the rest of the passengers also jumped into the sea, except the sailor. The sailors were the only ones who didn't plunge into the sea. And then what did he cry? Ferdinand, when he was jumping into the sea, he cried, "Hell is empty and all the devils are here." So while taking a plunge into the sea, while jumping into the sea, he screamed that now the hell is empty and all the devils are here. Means all the devils from the hell have been let loose and they are into this ship. That is why these strange things are happening in this ship. All the devils from hell have come into the ship, and he screamed this and he jumped to the sea. We end here and then we'll continue from here tomorrow.